what happened in those first 20 years that shaped how you viewed life moving forward?
I had this wholesome set of grandparents, but my dad, on the other hand, was kind of a dysfunctional, retired Navy alcoholic, and created a lot of dysfunction in our house. And I remember the moment when I said to myself at age 16, this will never happen to me. A big takeaway from this, though, kind of the lesson for others, is that, and I talk about this in the book, that finding your purpose. I think your purpose involves, number one, your adversity, and number two, your talent. So you need to find your talent and understand the adversity that you've been through. Our purpose in life, and it took me a long time to figure it, it took cancer for me to figure this out, was really to leverage that adversity and then use our talent to combine those two things to find our purpose.
You are listening to Personalization Outbreak, a podcast about the collapse of traditional corporate standards in today's more personalized world. I'm Glenn Llopis. I'm a leadership strategist, author, contributor to Forbes, and founder of the Leadership in the Age of Personalization movement. On this show, I'm interviewing executives across multiple sectors to find out how the balance between standardization and personalization can exist.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Personalization Outbreak Podcast. During these times of uncertainty and volatility where the future is fueled with unknowns, we can all benefit in grounding ourselves in the fundamentals of how to build a good life, one that is full of not just goodness, but success and happiness. Our guest today, Tom Lewis, will help overcome popular myths that exist today about how to create a life and career of success from the principles that he'll share with you from his book, Solid Ground. Outstanding book, and I highly recommend it. You see, Tom, he's the real deal. He's an award-winning entrepreneur and philanthropist who overcame career setbacks, tough competition, and a life-threatening illness to reach the pinnacle of success, and more importantly, fulfillment. So before we get started, please click the like button below, share it with your colleagues, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and social media at Glenn Llopis. Tom, welcome to the show. I'm very grateful for your time.
Thank you, Glenn. And I look forward to getting to know you better and sharing our ideas.
Well, Tom, needless to say, you don't go limited with ideas. This book, it's not just a book. It's a class that every high school and or university should be teaching, because it not just takes us to the fundamentals, it helps us understand how to navigate times of uncertainty. And so I really congratulate you in your book. And again, I highly recommend it for those who are hungry for timeless wisdom to win. But also, Tom, I think it's for those who want to hold themselves accountable. The book is not just grounded in foundational fundamentals, but through your powerful personal stories, your favorite quotes, charts, and exercises. You just can't put the book down without being held accountable to reflect, act, learn, and unlearn certain habits. So why now? Why did you release this book, and why was it so important to you?
Yeah, I think back, I went to the University of Kentucky and had a great experience there, majored in engineering, which in hindsight was a mistake, but high school kids don't know what to major in when they go to college. And, but anyway, I graduated and then I knew engineering was the wrong thing for me. So I went to North Carolina to get my MBA, and I knew that was really who I was. So, we'll fast forward to finding your talent, but I was beginning to understand kind of how life worked. And I realized I'd made a mistake, that my talent was not in engineering. It just I wasn't that good at it. It didn't resonate with me. But when I was in college, I was really into becoming a leader, and that's what I was ready to do. And so I jumped right into lots and lots of different leadership roles and really thrived. But I didn't really even try to thrive in the classroom. But anyway, where I'm going with this book, though, is that I then, had a had worked for 4 companies and lived in 6 cities, had 6 or 8 great bosses, learned a lot over 18 years, and then started my own company. And then became a philanthropist and gave scholarships and did a lot of philanthropy. But then I always wanted to write a book. And but the real point of this book was, what did I do different? I went back to my 50th high school reunion not too long ago, and that's a eye-opening experience. And all the people you thought were so cool aren't that cool anymore. And of course, but most people don't accomplish what I accomplished. And, so I wanted to understand, what did I do different? And so I really gave a lot of thought to that. And I kind of borrowed John Wooden's pyramid idea. And I broke it into 3 segments. What did I do? First of all, my personal journey, which is, I want to say, think about your personal journey, because your personal journey is your foundation, really. I mean, is that nobody can rewrite their personal journey, and we all have important things that happen in those first 20 years that never go away. They kind of form our worldview. But then after that, how do you build a solid foundation? How do you reach your potential, and how do you achieve life's greatest things, like wisdom and success and happiness? And so I went back and I kind of dissected, what did I do different? And then I took a deep dive into each one of these subjects in 15 chapters, from personal character to happiness. And that's really the roadmap. And so I think Solid Ground is a roadmap. And not everybody is that serious about success, but for the ones that are, this is the roadmap.
So just listening to you, Tom, and again, we didn't prepare for this, but then again, I don't think you need to prepare for anything. You've done the preparation. But what happened in those first 20 years that shaped how you viewed life moving forward? Because in the reason I ask this question is that in the work that I do, I see this every day, that there are people that are just realizing who they are, what they stand for, how maybe some adversities shape them. And it's now, when they're 25, 30 years old, they're just starting to figure out what is that makes them different. What was it about you that took you to another path?
Someone said that I was motivated, and I put this in the book, by the twin engines of my mother and my father. One was positive, my mother. Couldn't have been better. We had the closest relationship. We were just alike. We were soulmates. My entire life. But my dad, on the other hand, was kind of a dysfunctional, retired Navy alcoholic, and created a lot of dysfunction in our house. I mean, times when we had to leave the house to go hide out because he would get kind of violent, or threatening to become violent, when he drank too much. And so, and then I had this wholesome set of grandparents, my mother's grandparents, that we spent a lot of time with up in Eastern Kentucky. And they were just wonderful people, happy people, solid people, just idyllic, really, in a little town called Neon, Kentucky. And from the time I was born till the time I was about 12, I was just recently going through some old albums and just pictures of me when I was born, and when I was 4, and when I was 2, and when I was 8, and my grandfather had a chicken house, and I had chickens, and it was just perfect, But so I saw that goodness, and then in my own home, my mother and father, I saw the dysfunction, and it was all created by my dad. And so, we were broke. My dad's creditors tried to foreclose on our house when I was 16. And I remember the moment when I said to myself at age 16, this will never happen to me. So I kind of saw the best of both worlds. And I realized character flaws really are huge, and so that's my story.
Tom, I really appreciate you sharing that. and I can't imagine the memories it brought back. But I'm very grateful for this, because this is the level of humility that you have that is so powerful in the lessons that you teach, because it's clear that your adversities made you the person that you are, and that you never wanted to go back to what you knew just wasn't right.
Yeah.
And
And,
so,
and you know,
go ahead,
another,
please.
a big takeaway from this, though, kind of the lesson for others is that, and I talk about this in the book, that finding your purpose. I love it when colleges say, come to our college and find your purpose. But if you go back and look, to me, I think your purpose involves, number one, your adversity, and number two, your talent. So you need to find your talent and find and understand the adversity that you've been through. And we've all been through it. I mean, I don't know your story, but what I do know is it's not perfect, that there's some adversity in there somewhere. I mean,
No doubt about it.
if you're
I
a
mean,
human being,
we
yeah,
all have it. And
yeah. But,
it's go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
but I'm saying our purpose in life, and it took me a long time to figure it. It took cancer for me to figure this out, was really to leverage that adversity and then use our talent to combine those two things to find our purpose. And then, another thing that happened in Eastern Kentucky was I was with a lot of poor people, a lot of underprivileged, uneducated, kind of country bumpkins, hillbillies, you name it, a real rough group of people. But I got to be friends with them. My dad had a concrete block factory up there, and I spent the summers up there, and I got to know all these kids, and even so, but I had a heart for them. Okay, I have a heart for people that are just at the bottom of society, and so then I used that adversity and my own talent to build wealth, and that's why I started a foundation, was to help people like that.
Well, you've been true to who you are and your story. And in fact, you said that you can't find purpose until you discover who you are. And you just explained what it took for you to discover what mattered most to you. But you also said that you can't find your passion until you develop your work ethic. Could you go into that, please?
Yeah. Well, I the word passion is really overused. I really don't like that word, because everybody loves to say, "Oh, I'm so passionate about this," and so, like, who cares what you're passionate about, really? But passion changes, And I tell that little example in the book where, your passion is not consistent. My passion used to be high school football, but had I tried to make a career out of football, I would have failed. Okay, so, but your passion keeps changing, but passion doesn't come at the beginning of a journey. It comes at the end, I mean, and for example, do you have children, Glenn?
I do. I have a little daughter. Thank you.
Yeah, how old is she?
She's 9.
Okay. So having children is hard work. Our middle son just had their second, and it's chaos. I mean, so, raising children is a lot of effort, and you just have to plow through it. But somewhere along that process, it's one of the most meaningful things you've ever done. But it includes hardship, and it includes work, and it includes exhaustion and everything. But it leads to passion at the end. So I think passion, like when I started my home building company, I wasn't passionate about building houses. I was trying to build a company that made money, really. But I knew I was good at it, but I wouldn't say I was passionate about it. But after you invest your effort in something, the passion comes at the end, I think. I mean, like in your promotional efforts and your podcast and everything, you put a lot of work into that. But the more you do it, the more passionate you'll become about it. The more invested you'll become in it, and then it becomes part of you. And so I think the passion comes at the end, not at the beginning.
Well, I couldn't agree more, because, what I do now, I don't do this for me. I do it for others, and I do it to create a library of wisdom for my daughter.
Yeah.
And she's 9 years old, Tom. I don't know if I'm going to be around for another
Right.
50 years.
Right.
So this is about
Yeah.
leaving a legacy. This is
Yeah.
about future legacies. And I think that's what Solid Ground is about. It's about helping people identify
Yeah.
how to create a roadmap for themselves to find their own legacies. That's how I took it.
Yeah. I mean, I say forget your passion, find out your talent and your adversity. Get clear on those two things, and then that will lead you to your purpose. And
well, let's go to finding your talent. Okay. Again, you started at the University of Kentucky. You got your degree in engineering. You knew that wasn't right. You got your MBA. Like, when did you start realizing what your talents really were?
well, again, it took time. And for me, I knew I was good in math. I knew I was a good problem solver. I knew I was kind of not technical, but mechanical in terms of I could solve problems. I was just logical. I had that. So I think I could have been successful in a lot of different businesses. I also later learned through assessments, and that's why I talk about self-awareness, is that when you look at your 6 motivating values, and there's an assessment in the book on self-awareness called the Indigo Assessment. I encourage you to take it. It takes 45 minutes, but it'll tell you more about yourself than your wife knows about you. I mean, already. I mean, so but the 6 motivating values, my strongest 2 are utilitarian, which is efficiency, and then individualism, which is kind of ego. So I think those 2 things make a great entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs have egos. You know, you kind of need an ego to stick your neck out like that. And then the utilitarian is just a real business mindset. So I think I was kind of made to be an entrepreneur. Those were my values. But so
if I could jump in, Tom, if I could give you my own point of view as I read through the book, your talent is the ability to see opportunities. That's what I saw. And you said it. I wasn't passionate about building homes, but I knew that I could find a way to build a good business from it. You saw the opportunity that others didn't see. So I give you so much credit, because I think that's what everyone's trying to find now, but it's hard.
But you know, the hard part really too is, you know, I worked for big companies, good companies. So they had a lot of structure. They had really sharp people, and I was making, you know, a decent salary and bonus. Okay. But the jump from being an employee at a big company to being an entrepreneur, I say it's like jumping over the Grand Canyon. You know, you just can't get there from here. So how do you get there? I was lucky to run across Trammell Crow, and that was through friends of mine from Carolina. And then I became a partner. So I was able to create enough wealth that I could go out on my own for a few years. And had I not, so I kind of had to build that bridge to give me, because you can't just step out of being an employee. And that's where most people are stuck. They're working for Apple or Google or Microsoft or big company. And how do you become an entrepreneur from there? I mean, you know, a significant one. So it takes capital to do that. And so, but it took me 18 years to learn, to become mature enough and to really know what I was doing. So when I stepped out on my own, I was completely ready to do that. I mean, I had already been running my own business at Trammell Crow for 7 years, okay, as a partner. And if you've ever been a partner, you begin to realize that, you know, they say in Japanese, the word partnership stands for same bed, different dreams, you know, but I had great partners, but, you know, partners are you know, kind of get old too, you know, so, but I was ready to go out on my own, but it took me 18 years to do it. But I was still only 41. So I'm still a young man.
Well, but what you also did is you made good decisions. What do we do as we try to reach our full potential in our work and in our lives? What would you advise people on how to make good decisions, Tom?
Well, I think the biggest thing to making good decisions is knowing your values and knowing your goals. Okay. People that don't, I love this quote, people that don't have goals get used by people that do. Now, I hate being used. I mean, I don't like the idea of being used. I don't think anybody does, but So
Mm.
number one, have goals, first of all. I mean, and not just what am I going to do today, but what am I going to do someday? I love that idea. Someday I want to become something. So if you get clear on someday, someday I knew when I was 23, someday I want to own my own business and be an entrepreneur. I knew that, but I didn't know when. I didn't know when the opportunity would present itself, but I knew that was my North Star.
Yeah.
And so, so you have to know your someday goal, and you have to have other goals. And so, and then, and then the other thing is you have to know your values. If you know your values, like, and I later on, I went through an exercise, and it's in my book. My core values are honesty, integrity, achievement, resilience. I forget the other ones, but I mean, but you get clear. In honesty was number one. I mean, so, but if you get clear on your values, then you come up with decisions. You evaluate each option. You can't make a decision until you have an alternative. So you look at each alternative and you say, which ones measure up with my goals and with my values.
Well, and I think you take this a step further, Tom, and say, well, the kind of decisions that you make based on the kind of friends you want to respect. I mean, those within itself are big decisions that we have to make.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that based on your values, you probably had a second guess who should belong in your inner circle from time to time. I know that happens to me, so I would imagine it happens to you sometimes.
Yeah. Another thing I would say there, a lot of people talk about mentors, like he's my mentor. And I never had a mentor. But what I did have were role models. And so to me, there's a difference. And a mentor is like, oh, they're my teacher. It's their job to coach me. But role models, you just identify people that I admire that person and I want to become more like that person. And I had a lot of people like that in my life. And so, but I didn't have nobody took me under their wing and said, I'm going to be your mentor. Because I was responsible, not anybody else. So, but I think I encourage people to identify people that they admire. And
I agree. That was for me, ironically enough, Tom, and I appreciate you sharing your story. That for me, that was my dad. Fortunately, I had someone that I could look up to, and he took the time for me. And I think this is what you're trying to do now in your life. I mean, as a philanthropist, I mean, it sounds like a nice title, but you're very active. And what you're trying to do to provide education to those who may not have access to it is very remarkable. What was that passion?
Well, there's this idea of becoming the best you can be, and that really resonates with me. And I really wish that for everyone, that we could all just become the best we can be. And I also will say, when I wrote Solid Ground, I certainly wasn't writing it as a Christian book, but, I think my Christian values came through. And I've been surprised how people that like the book kind of come from that worldview, but I think, God put us on this world and gave us various talents. And then he also gave us various hardships. And he's trying to encourage us to make the most of our life. And so, and ultimately to help others and to help him and to serve him. So, but I think everybody deserves that, and very few people get it. A lot of people just don't, it doesn't happen for them. And so that book is written for people that want to become the best they can be. And this was how I did it. But these are the principles, And another thing I'll say about writing a book, if you think you know something, try writing 25 pages on it, like decision making. I mean, so it was very educational to me to really get clear, and I had a lot of consultants and a lot of exposure to a lot of different management techniques and what have you. But to sit down and write a chapter on decision making, I got really clear on what I believed about that topic. And so writing is also, it's therapeutic, and it's also, you learn from writing it, from using the right words,
Well, speaking of that, let's talk about what you just mentioned, the importance of keeping your drive alive. Oftentimes we have that drive, we want to go for it, and then it starts to dwindle. We don't have the right people around us. We forget that there's a difference between ambition and drive. And I know that you have an opinion on that one, Tom. What's the difference between ambition and drive?
Well, ambition, it's easy to have ambition. Someday I want to be president of the United States, or a billionaire or a millionaire or whatever. That's easy. The hard part is getting there. And so drive is that little engine inside you that gets you out of bed early, that causes you to make your bed, to put your boots
So
on,
true.
and to get outside and start chopping wood. I mean, that you don't really want to do that. So it's that inner motivation that it's just something in you that very few people really have. I mean, it's rare, and I would say even successful entrepreneurs, and when I mean successful entrepreneurs, I mean, not somebody running their own taco shop, but somebody that is running a significant business. That people like that are rare. People that can lead public companies are rare. I mean, but you don't do it working 40 hours a week. I mean, you start off at, not afraid to work 80 hours a week, and I would say, I think I said in the book, and people don't like to hear this, if you really want to be successful, it starts at 60 hours a week, because, and for example, a 40-hour-a-week person does something once and they turn it in. A 60-hour-a-week person does that same thing 2 or 3 times and then they turn it in. It's much better. And
You know what I've learned, Tom?
Huh?
I know what I've learned, Tom, is that instead of telling them that, they have to figure it out themselves because it becomes the default behavior. Like if you're really in it to win,
yeah,
it just requires that drive. And
Yeah.
you can't teach drive.
no,
It's either in you
no,
or it's not.
no, I totally agree. I totally agree. And most people, it's not. And so,
No. Well, and
that's why I put that chapter, and I've read every success book in my lifetime, from How to Win Friends and Influence People to 7 Habits to Outliers. None of them mention drive. And then another thing I would go to there is what I call career management. I mean,
Yeah.
so many people are smarter than you and me that get stuck in some kind of B- job and just stay there for 30 years, and then it's too late. When you turn 50, I told one of our sons, the door to opportunity closes when you're 50. When you're 40, the door is still open. When you're 25, it's wide open. But at 50, there aren't a lot of new opportunities out there, unless you've got the track record,
Well, that's why I call what you just described career quicksand, because we just are so stuck in it. We don't have the drive to get out of it.
Yeah.
And, and if I may, because of time here, and I can't believe how time just flew by, Tom, I'd love for you, because these are fantastic, these myths and realities about entrepreneurship. Let's just tackle a few of them.
Okay.
You said here, the myth is it's about strategy. You believe that the reality is execution. Why?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like the difference between ambition and drive.
It's true.
The strategy that some consultant put together, that's 20-page document of all this great ideas, but it's about execution. I mean, it's about, like I said, getting out of bed and getting your boots on and going to work. And so, yeah, these realities and myths, I love them too. One of my favorites is it's about the team. Everybody loves to use the word team. They used to be employees, and then they became associates, and then they became, somewhere along the line, they became team members. But anyway, it's about the team. It is not about the team. Apple, or not Apple, but Facebook is not about the team. It's about Zuckerberg. I mean, it's my company. I had a lot of really good employees, but it's about the leader. It's really about the leader. And
How about this one? The myth is it's about great ideas, and the reality is it's about solving a market problem. What a fundamental that is. But we don't know. We don't think like that.
Well, I've just heard so many people talk like that, that, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I've got this great idea. I'd rather have a bad idea. And then you start with a bad idea and then you grind it and you work it. And then ultimately you figure out, you turn that into a better idea and a better idea and a better idea. When I started my company, I didn't have a totally clear vision on it. I mean, I knew, I wanted to focus on quality, and I knew I wanted to be different than all the public home builders. There were 33 public home builders in Phoenix when I started my own private home building company. So I knew, and I'd worked for some of these people, so I knew who my competition was. So I knew I had to be different. But the longer I got into it, the more different I became. And so after 10 years, I mean, we were so much better in quality. That's really where we found our niche. And I mean, we would deliver 25 houses a month, let's say one a day, $600,000 homes almost perfectly. If you could imagine that. I mean, but it took 10 years to develop the systems, to develop the people, to develop the inspection process, to include the customers. I mean, so but we were so far ahead of these other builders. So your company continues to evolve. It doesn't just start with one great idea. You have to keep making it better. It's about constant improvement.
Yep. And it's about creating opportunities that the market hasn't seen yet, which is what you did with quality.
Yeah.
So Tom, let's shift to the final question as we wrap it up.
Okay.
After all of this success that you've achieved, Tom, and you've been quite humble and not even going into such detail with it today, which says a lot about you, but why do you believe that happiness is one's life's greatest achievements? And how did you find happiness?
Well, excuse me one second. Well, I actually took cancer and I had melanoma in 2017, and I didn't know if I was going to live or not. I mean, it was the cancer had spread from my skin to my liver to my lungs. And so they call that stage 4. Fortunately, I caught it early on a PET CT scan. And fortunately, I got on a drug quickly that caused the tumors to recede and ultimately go away. But during that time, I prayed a lot and kind of developed a strong relationship with Christ, I would say, too. But then when I found out I was clear of cancer, something I didn't see coming happened. and I finally found gratitude, because something that I thought I might lose, I didn't lose. And so I think my whole life I'd been missing gratitude. I'd been chasing the gold ring for so long, so hard, that I didn't take the time to really be grateful. And so when it comes to happiness, I have my own definition of it, and here's what it is. Happiness is simple. It's the natural result of loving other people, of having gratitude, and living a moral life. Okay, and so if you do those 3 things, if you and love other people, in other words, focus on other people. If you're focused on yourself, and I go through this in the book, you're less happy. And I know, like your dad said, happiness is not a constant. It's kind of it's variable, but these are the components of it. So if you focus on other people and try to help other people, you're happier. If you just focus on yourself all the time, you're less happy. Okay. Number 2, gratitude is probably the biggest thing, really. But if you just wake up every day like I do now, and I'm happy to be alive. I didn't used to wake up that way. I'm just more grateful. You can't rattle me that much, because inside I'm just grateful. And then the idea of living a moral life. Aristotle discovered that 2,500 years ago. And I like to say, if you think that's not true, try living an immoral life, see how that works out for you. I mean, it's immorality, I believe, will certainly lead to unhappiness, along with jail time and a lot of other things probably. But so but it also makes you feel proud of yourself. I mean, if you know that you're adhering to your own values and your own and morality, then you feel good. You feel better about yourself, and you're just a more secure, more satisfied, happier person. Now, other things are going to happen. You're going to have bad days, but basically, that's my story on happiness.
I love it, Tom. And you reminded me a lot, not just about the things that my dad would share with me, but the things that he made sure that I'd never forget. And that is that if you know who you are, if you live a day of making a difference in other people's life, if you do what's right, and I get those things actually for many are very, very hard, you will live a life that's full. I mean, I a little insight, probably too much information here, Tom, but there was Glenn before I got married and Glenn after I got married. And I was the same guy. I stuck to my guns until I finally found the one that would make my life better. And I just share that because it takes someone to know what that looks like and feels like to make that type of decision. And I think this is, part of the fundamental wisdom that you're sharing in your book is if you stay true to the fundamentals, they'll start to build a foundation that is sustainable through the test of time.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it makes me think of asking a good question to ask young parents is, what are you doing to build character in your children? And some people will tell you they have a plan. Most people will say, what do you mean? And we're like, what do you mean? Okay, what are you doing to build character in your children? I mean, so most people just don't give this a lot of thought, but I think if you know what your values are, then those are probably the values you want to impart to your children. And and things like honesty, or things like hard work, or things like setting goals. I mean, you just begin to talk about those kinds of things, and you build that in your children.
But it's interesting, and you and I can talk forever, Tom. I want to be mindful of your time, but let me just share this as you prompted a thought. I'm never going to micromanage my kid, never. And I share this because what was my initial goal as a father was that teacher the values, teacher character, teacher, again, the core fundamentals of what it means to be a good person. And how do I measure this? Because when she does something wrong, I don't have to tell her, because 5 minutes later, she'll come back and say, I'm sorry, Dad. And it's when you see your children bounce back, you're doing something right. And I always tell my wife that when she bounces back, we're good. She's got to learn on her own.
Yeah. Well, the other thing we made our children do was work. I mean, work around the house, take out the garbage, mow the grass.
Right.
And that made them, that created more self-esteem in them. If we were just constantly asking them what they want for dinner, or what can I do to make you happy? It would have been different. Hey, listen, I got to go too, Glenn, but we could talk all day. So thank you.
Tom, I really want to thank you for your time today. You were wonderful. And again, another shout out for Solid Ground. Highly recommend that our listeners and viewers buy it. And as I leave every show, when you lead in the age of personalization, you will see things that others don't. Do what others won't, and keep pushing when prudence says quit. Tom, thank you again, my friend. Really enjoyed your time.
Thanks for listening to Personalization Outbreak. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. If you enjoyed the content, visit ageofpersonalization.com to check out our free streaming video series and learn how to get involved in the movement. I'm Glenn Llopis. I wish you a good day, and remember, without strategy, change is merely substitution, not evolution.